So if you're here with us for the first time, we are especially glad that you came this morning. Please feel free to sign our guest book out in the lobby or our virtual guest book if you're joining us on Zoom. There's a link in the chat to do that, and it's completely safe and secure, and we would love to help you on your spiritual journey. And if you're visiting us today, would you introduce yourself so that we can welcome you? You don't have to, but if you would. Anybody like to say hello? Anybody on Zoom? Ed, do you see anyone on Zoom? Oh, good morning.
I am the proud mother of Martina Kuzenski and Franklin. I am not a visitor. I come often to support my daughter as what we should do with all of our children. So I'm just great to have the opportunity to be here again and to see everyone. And thank you for your love and your warm welcome as we all enter into this door. So everyone have a great day and thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you very much. We're glad to have you. Please stay afterwards for coffee, and I saw some treats in there too. Is there anyone else? Well, thank you. And we offer our gratitude this morning to everybody who helped make this service possible.
Do you see me as an equal? In your eyes do I unfold? Do you see me for the person that I am? Do you see me as an equal, free of labels, names and signs? I'm living well and whole here in my plan. They say don't judge the books just by their covers. How can we do less by sisters and brothers? For we are truly equal, one people just the same. Let's love each other as we are, living on this plane. Did you know that human difference is the way we're meant to be? But only when we know that are we whole. For our differences make us stronger, each with our abilities, and together we comprise one family whole. They say don't judge the books just by their covers. How can we do less by sisters and brothers? For we are truly equal, one people just the same. Let's love each other as we are, living on this plane. It's true here in me and there in you. Just behind what we can see, what we can do. Together we can truly be known for our abilities, living, loving, laughing, being free. Now we share this tiny planet home as one great family, though different as the fishes of the sea. But when blinded by appearance, we disable those we see, and we handicap our own humanity. They say don't judge the books just by their covers. How can we do less by sisters and brothers? For we are truly equal, one people just the same. Let's love each other as we are, living on this plane. Then we'll all be whole once again. Then we'll all be whole once again.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I am Martina Kuzenski, your lay-led worship leader today. My pronouns are she and her. As we center ourselves for this time of worship, I would like to remind everyone here that we are guests of the ancestral land of the Susquehannock people. While guests of years and centuries past were not kind to the people or the land, we are making the conscientious decision today and in the future to respect this land. Welcome to this hour of worship. Welcome to old friends and welcome to new friends. In this space we call UUFHC, we welcome those with doubts, anger, or pain. We welcome those with joy and resilience in their hearts. We renew our spirits in this space with members of our community. For our call to worship this morning, we meditate on the words of Reese Williams. Spirit of life, come to us to break down barriers, to widen horizons, to make us less judgmental. Help us to see the larger picture and the kinder conclusion, to love and let live, to embrace and forgive, to sustain and care. Help us to reach out to our better selves, that we may love more and hate less, care more and reject less, that bound together by understanding, we may sustain each other through trial and tribulation, through joy and happiness, through sickness and health. Help us, O God, to be joined in a common purpose of hope and fulfillment. Renew and revive us. We seek a common, holy ground for one and all. Amen. Now we will have our opening hymn, number 134, Our World is One World. Thank you, Greg, for being our musician today.
We light this chalice today in honor of the Unitarian Universalist first principle, to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We recognize that these are not just words to be spoken. Instead, they call us out of our comfort into an ever-deepening commitment, a commitment we make to the rights of all whose inherent worth and dignity are denied, diminished, or destroyed by systems of oppression. And they call us into the practice of looking into our own hearts with courage and honesty. And I think it's time for all ages.
Welcome, friends. It's Miss Gisa. I'm so glad you're here today for our read aloud. Today's story is about a little girl who has a hard time understanding. Has that ever happened to you where you weren't understanding something that someone said? Or has that happened to one of your friends? Let's read the story and see how this little girl feels. The story is called I Didn't Understand, written by Mimi Srinivasan and pictures by Shubham Lakhera. I cannot read and write yet, so I am telling this to my teacher, and she is writing it down. I cannot read or write yet because I am mentally challenged. Those are two big words. My teacher spelled them for me. Mentally challenged. They mean that I cannot think as well as you. It takes me a long time to understand things. Sometimes things I cannot understand at all. Some things I cannot understand at all. This is a story of 3 things that happened in my school yesterday. I did not understand them. Maybe you will, if you are not mentally challenged like me. Most of the children in my school are not mentally challenged, but there are 3 children in wheelchairs. They cannot walk, and 2 children are blind. That means they cannot see anything. We 6 are called children with special needs. Our school has a special room for us. We also have a special teacher, and we go to our special room every day for 1 hour. Yesterday, my special teacher had called me to our special room at 11 o'clock. I love to go there. She teaches me to read and to count. She has many books and games. Time to go, Manna, said my teacher. I cannot read the clock, so my teacher tells me when it is time to go. I can find the special room now on my own. I told my teacher. I was so proud of that, so I took my pencil box and started to go there. Suddenly, I fell down. I don't know why. I heard someone laughing. It was Shweta from my class. Her foot was sticking out from her desk, and she was laughing. Some of the other kids were laughing too. I did not understand why. I was not hurt. I got up and went out. That was the first thing I didn't understand. Then after that, in the break, I was eating my lunch near the sandpit with Zara. Zara is my friend. She is not mentally challenged. She is really smart and can speak fast. She can read and write. She is very nice. The little kids had gone home, and the sandpit was empty. Only we big kids were around eating our lunch. There was a bird in the tree. It was singing very sweetly. Zara and I were happy. Have a bite of my banana, I said to Zara. Suddenly, there was a lot of sand on my banana. I don't know how it came there. Shweta and her friends were standing in the sandpit. They had some sand on their shoes. They laughed a lot. I did not know why. That was the second thing I did not understand. Come on, Manna, let's go to the music room, said Zara, and she threw away my sandy banana in the garbage bin. She took my hand and pulled me to the music room. I love the music room. I can play the piano a little bit. Zara and I played some tunes. That was nice. After that, it was time for our art class. Take out your watercolors today, said our art teacher. We are going to learn how to paint a waterfall. We all took our watercolor boxes and brushes out of our desks. Shweta, what about you? Why aren't you taking your paints out? Our teacher called out. Shweta looked very sad. In the morning she had laughed so much, and now she was sad. I looked inside her desk. Her paint box was all broken. The little circles of paint had fallen about and become powder. Her brushes were broken. How did they all break? Some of the others began to laugh. I did not understand why. It was not funny. It was very sad. I went to Shweta's desk. I gave her a hug. I gave her my paints and a brush. You can share my paints today, I said to her. Shweta looked at me for some time. Then she put her head down on the desk and cried and cried. Sorry, Manna, sorry, she said. Then she looked up at me and smiled. I don't know why she said sorry or why she cried, but I felt happy to see her smile. That was the third thing I did not understand. All these things happened in my school yesterday. I still don't understand them. Do you? Friends, we saw that Shweta had not made some good decisions. She was not very kind to Manna, was she? But in the end, Manna was kind to her, despite the way she had been treated. Manna did not understand because she has a disability called Down syndrome, which affects her learning and her brain. Sometimes, even though we may learn differently, there will be things that we will encounter in life that we don't understand. And it's always good to go to an adult or a teacher that can help you to understand and learn how to deal with different situations and with different kids who may not always be kind to you. I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope you will always think about your actions and how they may make others feel.
Thank you, Martina, for choosing that story. Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, and a spiritual community where we find meaning. Ours is a shared community where our joys are amplified, a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. We take this moment to reflect on our joys and sorrows and acknowledge the mutual support of this community. So now's the time where we care for one another. It's through our offering to support the mission of this congregation. Our contributions allow us to serve those who are seeking an affirming message of love and hope. And with your financial gift, we are able to offer our ministries of communal care, pastoral care, and social justice. For those of you on Zoom, there is a link going up in the chat that'll let you know how you can do that online, and our email address is uufhc.net. And as always, to everyone, we thank you for helping us to reach all who yearn for an inclusive and loving religious community.
Like the sea meets every shore, not an if but it's a when. From beginning to the end, I am fire in the rain. I've been through it all before, and I'd go through it again. Feel me burning from within, 'cause I am fire in the rain.
On a race, so we can motivate this generation of our people to the center stage.
Undivided, we are one. When it's said and done, just try and become a better man, a better son. No shadows if you face the sun.
You could try to run, but it's only that far. Fall in the sky if you aim from the stars. Out of this world, feel like we hit the ceiling, breathing like we living up on Mars.
Never the same, people gonna change, shivering in pain.
Remember the dance like nobody's ever really watching you. They can't see your tears fall in the rain. Nobody can see a teardrop in the rain.
Like the sea meets every shore, not an if but it's a when. From beginning to the end, I am fire in the rain. I've been through it all before, and I'd go through it again. Feel me burning from within, 'cause I am fire in the rain.
Nothing to lose, just give it all. Ain't nothing wrong with you taking the fall. If you feel tossed, then get up on the third and make sure that you come back on and standing tall. Some days you just gotta try. Take a leap of faith, you might even fly. Ain't nobody can stop you, and the only limit that you got up here is the sky.
Asking where, looking for signs. Search through the end of time, lost, can't seem to find a peace of mind.
Here's a peace of mind. Ever thought about the strength you possess? Life throws you obstacles to test you, just only so that you could bring out your best. I gotta confess,
Like the sea meets every shore. Not an if, but it's a when.
until the
From
end now.
beginning to the end, I am fire in the rain.
Let it burn
I've been
now.
through it all before, and I'd go through it again.
I can't
Feel
stop
me
now.
burning from within, 'cause I am fire in the rain. 'Cause I am fire in the rain.
Undivided, we are one. When it's said and done, just try and become a better man, a better son. No shadows if you face the sun. Never the same, people gon' change. Even in pain, remember the days like nobody's ever really watching you. Watch the fire burning in the rain.
Like
Come
the
on.
sea meets every shore. Not an if, but it's a when.
Till the end now.
Beginning to the end, I am fire in the rain.
I can't stop
I've
now.
been through it all before, and I'd go through it again. Feel me burning from within, 'cause I am fire in the rain. Feel me burning from within, 'cause I am fire in the rain.
Let me burn up.
Today's reading comes from Kim Nielsen, titled Disability and American Ideals. Which peoples and which parties have been considered fit and appropriate for public life and active citizenship? How have people with disabilities forged their own lives, their own communities, and shaped the United States? How has disability affected law, policy, economics, play, national identity, and daily life? The answers to these questions reveal a tremendous amount of us as a nation. When disability is considered to be synonymous with deficiency and dependency, it contrasts sharply with American ideals of independence and autonomy. Thus, disability has served as an effective weapon in contests over power and ideology. For example, at varying times, African Americans, immigrants, gays and lesbians, poor people, and women have been defined categorically as defective citizens incapable of full civic participation. In this version of the national story, independence is good and dependency is bad. Dependency means inequality, weakness, and reliance on others. When disability is equated with dependency, disability is stigmatized. Citizens with disabilities are labeled inferior citizens. When disability is understood as dependency, disability is posited in direct contrast to American ideals of independence and autonomy. Earlier this year, after the Disability Day of Mourning Vigil, Reverend Maria said that disability issues should be continued to be talked about. So I'm doing that now. Many people don't know this, but every March, the disabled community remembers those who are victims of the mindset, it's better to be dead than disabled. These are the people whose inherent worth and dignity were not affirmed. People who are not respected or shown compassion. People who are included in the list of people who receive no justice when something bad happens to them. If you're someone who believes in God, and I know not everyone here does, especially a God who doesn't make mistakes, then why would you try to fix the mistake we call disabled people? Why do we not accept them for who they are and meet their needs? Why do we wish for or even try to make the mistake go away? When I was a kid, being around disabled people or other people who didn't meet society's definition of normal was my normal. I grew up around an uncle who had autism during a time when autism wasn't a spectrum and only people what was considered below average intelligence could be considered autistic. He received a diagnosis during a time when it was thought best to institutionalize disabled people, as they were considered a family and societal shame. As people like to say, put it away from society, no one wants to see that. It was considered okay to warehouse people like him. Because being around disabled people was my normal, I didn't know until 2010 that they were institutionalized, when my cell biology professor told us about it, when there were talks about my alma mater being moved to the property that was at the time Rosewood Center. Many years later as an adult, I was back in the world of disabled people, but this time, I'm the one who's disabled. Last year, I found out my anxieties and social troubles were due to being autistic. Okay, I know some of you are thinking, you're not autistic, you have a full-time job, you have a master's degree. You're able to drive, move around. Surely you can't be autistic, that's only a thing for boys. Spoiler alert, people of all genders can be autistic, and we are learning that now. But many of those on the autism spectrum, which also includes Asperger's syndrome and pervasive developmental disorder, worry about being told they don't seem autistic whenever they disclose. What, you want me to act autistic? Because that is an ableist minstrel show, people. We only disclose to people we think we trust because of it. And many on the autism spectrum may have lost friends or family members due to disclosing their diagnosis. We haven't changed, we just have a label to figure ourselves out. But not being believed is not unique to the autism spectrum. If you have an invisible disability, you may not have been believed as well. It's bad enough that doctors don't believe their patients or take health issues seriously enough to investigate chronic illnesses more quickly. They're told, you don't look sick. You were fine yesterday. What happened now? In the words of the Devo song Peekaboo, if you cannot see it, you think it's not there. It doesn't work that way. They often may not be invited to events because they may have had to cancel so many times due to health issues, which they don't choose when they get to be sick. It just happens. Some people want to make their invisible disabilities more visible to show that they're disabled, but that's not a risk everyone is willing to or able to make. As mentioned earlier, a person could lose friends for being disabled. They may be treated with pity, which gets annoying after a while, especially since people don't want to be pitied. Others may automatically assume what you can't do, instead of figuring out what you can do, like what happened in an episode of Degrassi High. In a season 1 episode from the late 80s, there's a character named Maya Goldberg who's in a wheelchair. A group of friends wanted to go to a movie, but the closest movie theater was not wheelchair accessible, and neither were the buses, so they didn't invite Maya. At the end of the episode, Maya called them out on their ableism because the friends didn't think of alternative and accessible options for her to be included. There was another movie theater further away in town that's wheelchair accessible. Maya's mom could have driven her. They didn't believe that she had any agency, and they made a decision on her behalf. It was also hinted in the episode that the friends may have gone to the inaccessible movie theater on purpose because they'd be embarrassed to be seen with a disabled person. As mentioned by Kim Nielsen, disability has been and still is used as a weapon. There are times when people use words as a way to demean people, and their differences have been weaponized. We used to say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Spoiler alert, words hurt. And people know those powers of those words, so they'll use it against people who are different. We've used, and people still use, outdated names for medical conditions that slurs. In high school, the autism program director did a campaign called Spread the Word to End the Word. I've seen it at my undergrad too, and the goal is to get people to stop using the word retarded. I saw the campaign happen, and it seemed to work for a while. Then at my previous job, I heard people saying it. And the problem is, you have to think, do I want to call them out on it? Or will I be labeled a social justice warrior? Which, by the way, I hate the term social justice warrior. It's used to silence people like me who want to speak out, try to tell people words hurt, and you're like, you're too sensitive. We can use whatever we want. Freedom of speech, this is America. Some of you might know about hostile architecture. If you don't know what that is, it's a method used to restrict behaviors using the building environment around people. This can be as obvious as spikes built on top of ledges, but can be as subtle as removing benches so people can no longer sit in certain areas that were once accessible. The original intent of hostile architecture was to keep homeless people away from urban areas because people see homeless people as an eyesore. You don't want to see that. No one's going to come to our town. However, what was just used for homeless people affects other people as well. Elderly, pregnant people, and disabled people. One example of benches being removed is years ago, Disney World removed their benches. Got to get people to move around more. Can't have them sitting down resting. They spent money on this. Got to have fun. But you can't ride rides to spend money if you're sitting on a bench, so let's get rid of them. And for people who ask, we need benches, we have disabilities, we need to sit down, what do we do? And Disney's answer for people who want accommodations for stamina, use a wheelchair or a mobility scooter. Most of the lines in Disney World and Disneyland are wheelchair accessible, or there's a separate entrance. You can use that. You don't need the disability access card, except people might not want to spend more cash just to be able to sit down, especially if you're going to Disney Springs and you need to rent a wheelchair or a mobility scooter. You have a refundable payment of $100 on top of how much the chair you're renting is. Some people are scrimping and saving just to go to Disney World. Do you really think they may have an extra $100 to spend? Probably not. Speaking of mobility scooters, sometimes people are using them and they're invisible to other people. You don't see them, you're going to bump into them. They'll get in your way. I know that people probably don't want to stare at people in wheelchairs because you stare too long. It's considered rude. But you need to see where you're going, people. Also, I'm just going to say this. If you see someone using a cane for mobility purposes or to help navigate the world with low vision, for the love of whatever you believe in, do not tamper with it when it's in use. A couple months ago, my boss told me that his wife, she uses a cane to help with seeing. Someone decided to walk to it, look at it, and kicked it out of the way. You cannot make ableism up, people. Something that I've noticed and other disability advocates have noticed is that we're deficiency focused and fix-it culture. We focus way too much on what people can't do and how to fix them, how to make them normal, be just like us. One example that some people may know of this fix-it culture is applied behavioral analysis therapy. This therapy is often used as an early intervention for autistic children to stop their negative behaviors in order to pass as normal to society. The autism community is against this kind of therapy because of how many therapists use aversions to stop negative behaviors and the kind of aversions they use. The Judge Rodenberg Center still shocks autistic people when they're doing a negative behavior because they don't want to keep getting shocked, so they'll stop. And that's actually legal in America to still do that to autistic people. Let's think about that for a moment. Especially since some people consider ABA therapy as something, I wouldn't do this to my dog. I wouldn't treat my dog this way. Why are we treating marginalized people less than humans and dogs, pets, whatever? They're at the bottom of the totem pole, and that needs to stop. It is really disturbing. As we've seen in various videos so far, disabled people have various strengths just like able-bodied and neurotypical people. I decided to highlight disabled artists for their abilities, just as a way to help show that with proper supports and the right people believing in them, they can achieve whatever they want within their interests and their capabilities. But we need to be mindful that just because a person with a specific disability can do certain things, it doesn't mean everyone can. Just for example, I'm an autistic person with a master's degree, but we have to realize that not every autistic person may be able to go to school, especially since some people do not have or want to use accommodations for them. But instead of me complaining all the time of what society's doing wrong, I'm also going to talk about how can we help with disability justice, accessibility issues, and the fight against ableism. The first thing we should do is listen to the stories of disabled people. They know what it's like to live with a disability, and they know what helps them live in an able-bodied and neurotypical world. Non-disabled people have tried, yet many times failed, at creating spaces and tools for help. Once you find out what works best for that person, you can start using your accomplice powers to work alongside disabled people to improve accessibility. Examine the language you use every day and think about any terms you use that are considered ableist. Yesterday was the last day any of you can use the word retarded. Think about your thoughts. You have negative biases regarding disability? You focus too much on what a disabled person can't do? While you need to be realistic about the challenges disabled people face, think about their strengths too. A nonverbal person can still communicate by writing or using an augmented or alternative communication system. It's also wise to believe those with the lived experience of invisible disabilities. If you don't live it, you don't fully know it. In an instance I've seen earlier this year, someone has a medical condition which makes it safer to not get the COVID vaccine. Do not try to make them get vaccinated. I've seen heated arguments even within this congregation. We may all have different opinions about the COVID vaccine, but if someone's disability makes it that it could be really dangerous, just believe them. No one comes out on top in these heated arguments. You're invalidating their experience and making it seem like you know more about their medical condition than they do. UUFHC has actually made efforts to raise awareness and accommodate others. For example, in March, Reverend Maria and I hosted the first Disability Day of Mourning Vigil. While attendance was very low due to conflicting events from stewardship, there were still people who became aware of disability justice, which is a social justice issue that's not talked about much in our congregation or Unitarian Universalism as a whole. Jen Blosser, our Director of Faith Formation, has made efforts to accommodate people who need to fidget and struggle with sitting still in a chair by providing sensory toys and pads for kids to sit on during worship. They are right behind you right there. And as many neurodivergent people have experienced, society forcing us to be normal like everyone else contributes to comorbid mental health issues. I know that there's parents and guardians around here today. Let your kids use fidget toys. I brought one of my own as an example. They serve a purpose of helping people focus and are effective tools for self-soothing. If you think your child is too old to have sensory toys, I'll be 30 in November, and I have some self-soothing toys to use. The one I brought today is a fidget cube. I have anxiety when it comes to doctor's appointments and dentist appointments, and this helps me to focus on just moving the cube around, helps me stay calm before appointments. And honestly, people of all ages can benefit from these self-soothing tools, but the big issue is that many fidgets are marketed towards children. So many adults may not be comfortable using something that's called a toy. And honestly, it doesn't help that some jewelry sites, which jewelry is something you can chew on instead of your sleeve, your buttons, your regular necklace. It has the word kid or children in the name of the company. Equal Access, which is a UU organization made up of congregants of disabilities, their families, and allies, they created a certification called Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry. The goal of the AIM certification was to recognize UU congregations who worked on accessible and inclusive ministries, as well as dismantling ableism. Getting this certification was a goal Reverend Maria and I wanted to work on, but due to a lack of participation within UU congregations as a whole, disabled Unitarian Universalists were not getting much benefit from the program, and Equal Access decided to end the certification program on June 30th. However, anti-ableism efforts will not stop and should not stop. I know there aren't any kids sitting in the sanctuary right now, but in case there are any sitting on Zoom right now, I have something for you all to think about too. I want you to think about whether there's a classmate or other student in your school with a disability. How do your classmates treat them? How do the teachers treat them? How do you treat them? Are you kind to them, or you stay away from them for being different from your classmates? Do you even stay away from them because you're worried that your classmates will make fun of you for being nice to a disabled person? I want you and your families to have a conversation about how people treat disabled people. As Unitarian Universalists, we must include disability justice and anti-ableism efforts in our anti-oppression efforts. We cannot have one or two social justice issues dominate the entirety of Unitarian Universalism. And I do not want us failing a group of UUs who may have had their issues ignored in the past. I encourage you all to be accomplices in the fight against ableism, but please be mindful to not speak on behalf of those with disabilities who are present. Ashe, blessed be, and in the words of Captain Planet, the power is yours. Please join us for the closing hymn, number 170. We are a gentle, angry people. Thank you again, Greg, for the music. Before our postlude and time of fellowship, I offer you this benediction by D. Scott Cooper. The world aches for us to join together and bring about healing, toil for justice, and produce ever-increasing love. This is our calling. Go forth and act accordingly. Amen. Please enjoy this postlude by deaf rapper Sean Forbes. Well, looks like we're having technical difficulties, but tech team, are we just going to go straight to fellowship time?
Maybe you could play it during fellowship so we can hear it just when it comes on.
Well, everyone, while we wait to get that set back up again, please enjoy the coffee and treats.